Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers, here to talk Seahawks football after a tremendous victory at home for the Seattle Seahawks, winners of the game 20-17 over the Philadelphia Eagles, basically on a walk-off touchdown pass by Drew Lock, and then the interception to seal it down the stretch with just seconds remaining by Julian Love, his second of the game, puts the game away, and just a tremendous win for the team, for Drew Lock. Julian Love had a great game. There was a few other players that came up big, including the Njigba touchdown there on the final game-winning drive by
Leonard
Drew.
Williams on the defensive line had a big game too.
Oh, he did. He really did have a good game. Ken Walker, I thought, had a tremendous game. Combined yards, he was one of the players of the game, no doubt about it. DK Metcalf came up big on that final drive. Yeah, just a lot to talk about. Fun game. I was entertained. I thought the first half was actually decent. You and I were talking about the idea that that Drew Lock looked pretty good, even though he really only had one drive that really kind of came together for him. And that one drive stalled out there inside the red zone, and they ended up kicking a field goal. But it was 10-3 at halftime. But the defense kind of came up big. I thought played well, only allowed 17 points to the Eagles, pretty prolific offense overall. And then Seattle did just enough to eke out this win, which was really a must win for them to kind of keep their playoff hopes alive. And now really gives them an opportunity to finish out the season strong with 3 games against opponents, which could be favorable for them. So anyway, let's talk about Keith. Welcome in.
Every game left between now and the end of the season. So yeah, I mean, they have a potential to end up they're 10-7, claim their spot. They kind of control that now, which is not something that was true when they coming into this week after the 4-game slide, but they just beat a team that was, last year's NFC champion and almost won the Super Bowl. And they were playing really well earlier this season. Now their defense has fallen apart, and that's what's caused them to lose a couple games here before coming into this one. But they made a change on their coaching staff and to try and fix some of that. And it's still a good team, and the offense has a lot of talent. Seattle just came up big when they needed to. I will say, though, after all of the issues last week and all of the talk about guys not doing what the team had practiced and maybe not having the buy-in that they should have, we saw Tariq Woolen get benched in favor of Mike Jackson. And whether it was injury or not, no Jamal Adams in this game either. And those are the 2 biggest culprits last week. And guess what? Those guys out, the defense looked really good. I mean, that's 17 points to a really good Eagles offense.
Yeah. And Jalen Hurts, it's hard to contain him. He's a runner. I thought he looked great at times. I forced the ball in a couple different times. Of course, that desperation heave at the end, not going to really take that against him. He's trying to put himself in a position to win the game there. But he finished 17 of 31, 143 yards, 2 interceptions. Anytime you hold Jalen Hurts to those numbers, you're going to put yourself in a position to win the game. And the defense did that in this game. They gave the team an opportunity to win, and the offense did enough. I thought the offense looked really good at times, Keith, especially when they were running the ball successfully with Kenneth Walker. 19 carries, 86 yards, 1 touchdown, but he seemed like he had way more of an effect on this game than those stats would indicate, including some receptions out of the backfield as well to kind of keep drives alive. But I thought there was a really good balance in this game for the first time that I can remember this season, where we were able to run the ball effectively and move the chains and keep drives alive.
This offense works better when they run the football effectively. I mean, it's not just running the ball and having run into a brick wall. It doesn't help you. You've got to run it effectively. But when they do, the offense works better. And Ken Walker, 19 rushes for 86 yards. Charbonnet had 4 for 16. Would have liked to see Charbonnet get a little bit more play there, but Walker was running hard and he was running smart and he was doing a lot of really good things. So I could see just letting him carry it. But that's what the team needed. I mean, they needed to get back to running the football. And when they did, the offense started clicking.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no doubt. Zach Charbonnet, I think, is a really good talent. And in time, I think he's going to be very effective. And they'll find that balance. But, when Ken Walker's running the way that he was running, not only hard, but smart, finding the holes, getting the extra yards, contributing on pass catching, it's hard to keep him off the field. And there's no reason if he can manage that load at 19, 20 touches carrying the ball, you leave him in there because I think he gives you the best opportunity to break away, break some big plays and so forth. So can't say enough about how hard I thought DK Metcalf worked in this game. Didn't get a lot of looks in the first half. Came on strong, though, at the end of the game. Had a real big impact with a couple of meaningful catches there to keep the drive going. One was basically a hip check catch as he was falling to the ground. Managed to keep that thing, move the chains, and then the over-the-shoulder against the sideline catch in double coverage to keep that drive going and get us down into scoring range. And from there, Drew Lock was able to find Njigba for the over-the-shoulder touchdown in the right corner of the end zone, which was just absolutely a beautiful catch by Njigba. Not only did he get behind the defender, but that ball was just at the very tip of his fingers and his ability to haul that thing in. So it was beautiful. And I don't know if you had a chance to catch the after the game interview with Drew Lock that was on TV, Keith, but a lot of emotion from that guy about waiting for his opportunity, being ready, thanking his teammates for coming through, both on the offensive side and the defensive side for him, rallying around him. This is one of those games, if they accept it, that will bring a team together. We talked about it on our previous shows, Keith, that this is the kind of game where things can go south, or it adds cohesion to your team. It brings you together. You go through the adversity and you come out the other side. And they put themselves in a position to be successful, and they were. And how do you feel? Does it make you feel any different right now? We're recording just after the game Monday night. Does it make you feel any different as you view this team going forward down the stretch?
I mean, honestly, yes, it does, because they just beat a good team, right? This is the last good team that they beat was what? Detroit in week 2. And so they just beat a good team. They beat them in the way that this team should be beating teams. And that is playing good defense, not giving up big plays, turning the other team over, getting the ball back, and running the football. And they did all those things, and they beat a good team. It gives me hope that they've found the secret sauce that has looked to be just out of reach all season. And now maybe they can put it together. Maybe they can start and put together the next 3 games, the next 3 wins against bad teams, have themselves in position to go maybe make a run. I do feel better. And I know it's 10 minutes after the game ended and there's a lot of like recency bias and emotion there, but this isn't them beating, the Commanders or, some awful team like Arizona. This is them beating a good football team.
It was 10-3 coming into this game. They had lost 2 in a row, but they'd lost 2 games to some of the best teams in the NFL, in the Cowboys and the 49ers. Now, coming across the country and trying to beat the Seahawks, a team that's hungry, that needs a win, is dangerous. And we were able to get it done. Now, I will caution the feel-good part. I get that. I do too. But without those Julian Love interceptions, this game could be in question. He had one in the end zone that he picked off that stopped a drive and turned the ball over to our offense, and then the game-winning clincher interception on the sideline where he got his toe down, and then a foot down before he went out of bounds. Without those big plays, big turnovers, this game's could gone the other way. And then, of course, the Drew Lock touchdown at the end for sure, which was amazing. I mean, Drew put that team on his back that last drive.
He did.
There was no running the ball on that drive.
No, you couldn't. There wasn't enough time. You had to go 92 yards in 2 minutes.
A minute 24.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
10 plays, 92 yards, a minute 24 off the clock. With 28 seconds left, Drew threw the 29-yard touchdown to Njigba in the back of the end zone. Amazing.
Did you catch on the Kenneth Walker touchdown that Drew Lock was downfield making a block at the goal line to make sure that Walker could get into the end zone? Because they had a defender right there who probably would have hit him and knocked him out at about the 2.
Yeah.
But Locke was down there.
Parkinson was down there blocking as well. That was a great play. I mean, a tremendous block down by Noah Fant to cut off the linebacker. And then Walker cut that ball, outside, and Drew Lock ran down right with him there. And you're right, kicked that guy out, and Walker was able to score. Great run and blocking combo for sure. Just a fun game. I mean, I really liked the game as far as just how well we played. There was only 5 penalties on Seattle. The only thing I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of was a little bit more pressure consistently on Hurts, which is a really tough ask. I get that. He's tremendously difficult to contain. Reminds me a little bit of Kyler Murray in his ability to kind of scramble around and extend plays.
I think actually that's part of it. There were guys that were trying really hard to stay in their lanes as to not give him ways to escape and get outside the pocket. And that meant
I agree.
Not taking chances and sometimes not getting to him like you would have against another guy. But they were determined to pass rush within their lanes and keep him contained. And I thought they did a good job of it.
Yeah. And you mentioned Leonard Williams having a great game. I thought he had a great game. Couple tackles behind the line of scrimmage. Bobby Wagner had 9 tackles total. Quandre Diggs had 7. Julian Love had a 9 combined plus the interception. Probably his best game as a Seahawk. No doubt about it. I think that gives him 4 interceptions for the year as well. Which is good for him. Jordan
and it's
Brooks
not just, it wasn't, I mean, tackles. The interceptions are awesome and you can't take that away from anyone, but it was more than just the interceptions for him. He was good in coverage. He also had 2, pass breakups in the game and was just a lot tighter to guys than we've seen him. I like what I saw of Julian Love. This is the Julian Love I thought we were getting all year.
Do you think it helps with a guy like Adams out and Woolen out, and maybe the roles are better defined on the defense?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a good game overall. I was a little like, you look at it and you're like, wow, this team's only got 13 points and there's, under 2 minutes left. And if they get stopped here, I mean, that's just not a very good offensive showing. And then but they go 92 yards, get the touchdown, get the win, and you end up going, I feel pretty good about it. They were really conservative, and that led to some of the lower numbers, but it also led to no turnovers and some time of possession wins in there, and it just worked.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I think in a little bit of time, I think the weight of this game will kind of have a bigger impact, because I think you take a harder look at Drew Lock as a prospect, as a potential guy that could lead your team, not just because he came back and threw the balls that he did in that last drive and kind of won this game basically. But in the way that he kind of approaches his work ethic and so forth. I think you've seen the growth in the last couple of years of him, and then being ready for this moment. That's the biggest indicator for me. It's not that he was successful. I appreciate the fact that he was successful. I mean, that only adds to it, but the fact that he was ready to take on this, not only last week, but this week, and come back from last week, a tough loss in a tough game, and come back and put the team on his shoulders and eke out a victory here at home on Monday night, for him is a big, big moment for him, because it reestablishes it in his mind that he's able to do this as a pro. And I think that it's huge. I think it's going to end up having a huge impact for this team beyond this season, even though he's under contract only for this season now. It has an impact as far as what Seattle does, especially with Geno Smith's contract really going up in the offseason. It gives them another option.
I mean, you look at what Drew Lock has done and what Geno Smith has done. The offense is not better this year with Geno than it is with Lock. Now, it's not saying that Lock's been great, and the offense has been great with him, but the offense has not gotten worse when the backup quarterback came in. And if you can get similar production for 1/6 of the cost, I think you got to do it. And you could bring him in, and if you got a rookie to compete with them, and you got, a 2 quarterback system going into the future, I can't really complain much about that. And that's nothing against Geno. He just has not lived up to what he did last year. And therefore he hasn't lived up to his contract. So I could see the team just being like, you know what? At some point you've got to make salary cap decisions. And that would be a smart salary cap move. I know it'll scare some fans, and some people won't like us saying this, but I think that this really sold to me that Locke can run this offense as well as Geno. And
he's got a pretty deep ball too.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. I mean, there are going to be some growing pains, but I think you got to give Locke the reps. Now, I don't know if he's earned the reps this year. If Geno's ready to go tomorrow, he's probably going to be the quarterback in the last 3 games. And I think that's probably what you do, that you honor that, you honor the commitment, the veteran play, all of it. I think, in the end, he probably does give Seattle the best chance to win. But I think, you really do have to take a look in the off season as far as how you move forward, how those contracts are constructed, what the draft brings you and this future and so forth. So earlier in the week, Keith, there was a lot of, based on the 4 losses in a row, going into this game, and the play of the offense, and some of the criticisms and so forth, reached a peak, where you saw a lot of bloggers, a lot of podcasters, a lot of media criticize this team to the point where You were hearing things about a wholesale coaching changes. You were hearing things about Geno Smith is definitely not the guy. We have to draft a quarterback first round for sure. This team needs to be blown up. The whole roster construction is awful. John Schneider needs to go as well, blah, blah, blah. That's somewhat to be expected because this is an emotional sport. It elicits emotion from fans and from people that follow the team a lot, especially when expectations are set high. How does a win like this retemper everyone so that we can logically, with reason, go through the remaining part of the season? And what are we trying to do here? Are we a good team? Are we not a good team? Are we a playoff bound team? Or when we get there, if we do, are we able to win? Where are we at?
Well, I think that's something that remains to be seen still. But I think as far as like quieting all the noise, the noise is media generated at this point for the most part. Now you had the KJ Wright and part and Pete Carroll coming out and being like, ask the guys if they're still listening. But then what happened? He benched a couple of guys.
Mm-hmm.
He's played guys that maybe don't have the physical talent, but bought into the scheme and were going to do their job. And the defense worked. The defense worked really well against a really good team.
And they were able to stay in base and nickel a lot.
Yeah.
In this,
this
in
is
this
the
game.
kind of
they
thing
did not
where
blitz this team.
This adds buy-in because you benched a couple guys, and basically everything that you were saying about like what they were doing wasn't working. Like what, you know what I mean? Like all the stuff of like, hey, we told you to do this and you didn't do it. And then they replaced it with someone that was going to do it for you. And it worked. And so
that's pretty damning,
right? It's really damning to Woolen and Adams.
But the good news about Woolen, Keith, is he's young.
He
had a tremendous year last year. And for whatever reason, whether it was the injury and not coming in and practicing or whatever it is, they have a chance to correct it. He has a chance to learn from this. Hopefully the benching isn't going to completely destroy him as far as having his confidence level ripped apart. I think that they would be coaching him around that.
You look if you look at him and his makeup and what he did last year and all that, this is a guy that is going to fight for his job. He's going to compete. He is not going to give up and be like, whatever, and just tune people out. I think this is going to reset him a little bit and get him back on board. And I think that whatever was causing the disconnect, whether it be him not getting along with the position coach or, having too much of Jamal Adams in his ear or whatnot, I think that'll go away because he's too much of a competitor to give in and just be like, no, this isn't gonna work for me. He's too good and too, yeah. He's just built in a way that I think is going to cause him to fight and try and get his job back. So I'm not that concerned about that. And he's really young and super talented. I think it's just a matter of waiting and giving him an opportunity to work out the problems that he's had.
And I guess for those that didn't pay attention, he basically got benched for Mike Jackson in this game, and only played a handful of snaps, and had one tackle in this game, and then Adams was ruled out because of injury, knee, quote unquote, prior to the game, so he was not listed on the roster. And he was inactive. Now, the question for me is if Jamal Adams was active for this game, injury was not a factor, would he have also been benched? And I honestly think that yes, he probably would have been, and they would have run out the same. I noticed Artie Burns took a lot of snaps. I don't know how many snaps he did, but he was in there quite a bit too. I think the team just went in a different direction. They, Love moved up and played some in the box, but he was also in coverage a lot. But they seemed to plug and play in this game and did just fine with those guys being out. So,
yeah, I mean, Woolen got with Adams. I mean, Adams has been, he's been fighting back from the knee injury he had last year. Wasn't ready for the first few games this season. If he's not going to play, having him just be out makes a lot of sense. But that doesn't mean he wasn't unavailable because he was out. We'll see. Maybe that's not true. As far as maybe he actually was genuinely hurt. But honestly, like, he's not a guy that's going to get out there and you're not going to throw him in there in special teams.
Listen, we talked about this in the last episode before we knew that these players were going to be not available. We talked about benching Woolen, benching Adams specifically. And that's what happened. And I was very pleased that the team stepped up and rallied around the players that came in, and they did a great job, like you said. Now, further evaluation is required, all 22, the coverage and so forth, really breaking it down. But everything seemed to work smoother. I mean, guys had roles that were very well defined, and you didn't see a lot of players way out of position and so forth. There were a couple of blown coverages,
but they were they came from the linebacker side, spot.
Yeah. Yes.
Guys not picking up stuff coming across the middle the way they're supposed to. But
and the Eagles are a really good team offensively. Yeah. They present a lot of challenges for you. Yeah, interesting. So where do we go from here, man? Where do we go? What's
Tennessee?
What's up with this team? Yeah, is that the next game?
That's the next game, I think.
That's the next game.
Tennessee and then Pitt.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean that's where you go, is you move on, and you go, all right, we got this one, we got 3 more.
Can the team afford to slow play Geno Smith at this point?
I think so.
And we're in a must-win situation, as you know. Every game is a playoff game,
Geno Smith and get him healthier, because Drew Lock's shown that he can handle the offense as well as Geno. I still think Geno gets his job back for the rest of the year once he's healthy, but you don't have to rush him back.
That'll be very interesting to see what they do there. Because you don't want a controversy this late in the season.
You don't want
end up having
quarterback controversy ever.
I think that you will start to hear some chatter. And it'll be interesting how Coach Carroll handles that, and especially like tomorrow when he gives interviews and so forth to the media, how they handle that going forward. Because it's hard to temper a guy like Drew Lock and the enthusiasm he brings and all that. But, I think they are able to handle it. They just need to handle it correctly, because it could get a little squirrely. Love this game. Love the outcome. It was a fun outcome. I screamed and yelled more in this game than I have in like 5 weeks, just because there were some great plays, and I was literally just astounded at the last drive. Like, I just couldn't believe that it was coming together. And then that touchdown throw, I stood up and screamed. I just couldn't believe it. I was so happy for Drew Lock, really, and the team just having another opportunity to turn this thing around. The team is not a bad team. They got a lot of talent. It's just things have been so hard for them, both offensively and defensively. It's just nice to see kind of it all come together. You had some nice defensive performances here. The defense kept them in the game, and then the offense kicked it in and came away with the score. I just thought it was just a really nice, balanced win. And that hasn't happened very often this year.
And against a good team.
Against a good team, which is still a good team. They're 10-4. They're going through some stuff, though.
They are. But, they are going through some stuff. They've had some injuries that have hurt them, and they've gotten in a situation where, they felt they needed to make a change at the defensive coordinator. Sean Desai is no longer calling plays. Matt Patricia is.
Yeah, I wasn't intimidated by them, though. Like, if we needed to face them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it was a choice between Dallas and the 49ers and Detroit and these guys. I
would say,
we'd have to go back to Philadelphia.
First, Philly second, Dallas third. And I don't want to touch the 49ers if I don't have to.
Nobody wants to.
God, that team looks good right now. But yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
The Eagles
don't want to see us either.
Right now.
We could have a situation where we win 4 in a row before we get into the playoffs, and nobody wants to face us, and we go in as like the 7th or 6th seed.
Yeah,
and we could end up tipping a team on the road.
Well, because this is a team that got right at the end. It's not always your overall record and your seeding. Sometimes it's about getting hot at the right time. And we've seen that. Like the Giants won a couple of Super Bowls with Eli Manning, and they were, slightly above average team that happened to get hot down the stretch, win 3 in a row, get into the playoffs, and then go on a run. Seattle's got the talent to do that. We saw that tonight.
You need to see it on the defensive side. I think that needs to come from the defense. Like, I think our offense is going to be okay. The defense is the part. Like, if we can get stops on 3rd down, we can force teams. We can, create a sack at the right time. We can have the interceptions, force fumbles. This team's got a shot. So we'll see.
It comes down to you got to get hot at the right time. And all the things that we were worried about, like the defense just falling apart, giving up all those like big plays a week ago, which cost them a game. If they fixed that by benching a couple players that weren't doing their job right, and bringing in guys that truly buy into what they're trying to do, this is a good defense again. There's a lot of talent there. There really is. So, I would be careful counting out Seattle. If they can do what you and I think they're going to do, and that's go on a run, for the next 3 weeks, they're going to go into the playoffs as one of those teams that people don't want. You don't want to line up or end up playing them. Like, you're going to be like, we would rather be the 4th seed than the 3rd, because we don't want to play Seattle. It's going to be that kind of situation.
So I've let you go 33 minutes into this show, Keith, with your hat looking the way it looks. And yeah, I want an explanation. Like, how could you present yourself that way?
Okay, so it's a Seahawk Santa hat, and unfortunately there's like a part of it that's the neon, green Seattle color, and our studio is putting our background in on it, and it looks funky, but
it looks kind of funky, but it's cool. I have that same hat. You should have told me. I would have dug around and found mine. I don't know where it's at, but
well, we've got more shows between now and Christmas. So break it out.
Yeah. All right. So let's get out of here. Great win. It was good catching up with you. We're gonna do one more show this week. I'm gonna be out of town for a minute. So we're gonna come back on Friday and do a show, or maybe it might be even Saturday. We'll do a preview show of the next game. So in the meantime, you can find Keith on Twitter. He's at Myers NFL. You can find me at NW Seahawk. This show is Seahawks Playbook Podcast on your favorite podcast platforms. Hit the subscribe button when you find it, and then our own YouTube channel as well. and we'll see you next time. So great win. Hope everyone enjoys that, and go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.